Okay, so I sat down and did the usual fucking 10 minutes writing notes, bollocksing around, and said, no, just fucking hit record the fuck and start talking. Now, what I want to talk about is what's in my mind, because I sat down and I said, I could talk about this and I could talk about that, and then I kept different things that are in my fucking head kept coming to me and coming to me and coming to me. So I just kind of went, blah! Fucking make a list, Frano. You that loves your little lists, make a list. So I made a list, okay? The first thing that sprung to mind, because it's probably at the fore of what I'm doing, is to redesign the studio that I've built. Now, look, I've only done 2 conversations with it. I haven't brought it on the road technically because I've done all the podcasts. Well, all the podcasts. I've done the last 2 podcasts. So Adrian Gamble, it took me a second to remember Archie's name there. Adrian Gamble and Sean Hosey. I did both those guys in the studio, in the back of the van, but it was at the side of my house plugged in with an extension lead. So I haven't really brought it out and about as of yet. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, considering the fact that I've only fucking had 2 conversations, I haven't used it properly, and now I'm fucking redesigning it. But look, I want to do it, I want to build it again, and I want to build it better. The idea being to block out more sound that's getting into it. Because what I've done to it is stop the echo for a start, so the sound is good. So I'm sitting, which is in essentially what is an extension to my fucking house now. It's an extra room in my house that the kids can't get into, which is great. And I'm sitting in here and the sound is perfect. But I can hear stuff that you can't hear, and it's a little bit distracting. And I'm somewhere that's relatively quiet. Ideally, what I'd love to be able to do is park my van on O'Connell Street and have somebody hop into the back of it, and the 2 of us could have a fucking 3 or 4 hour conversation to our heart's content, and the people standing outside wouldn't even notice. That's absolutely not the case as it stands right now. If you were standing outside my van, if you just walk past my van, you would hear every single word that I'm saying, and probably quite clearly. Maybe a little bit muffled, but I mean, you'd certainly understand what I was saying. Anyway, that's one of the things that's rattling around in my head. How it's going to be built, what it's going to be built of, what I've learned in the process of building this one, how I'm going to improve it, how much better the next one's going to be, etc, 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 etc. Okay, the other thing that I'm thinking of is designing a public one, for want of a better term. So the idea is that I leave what I've built in a public place. I think I mentioned a little bit about this in the conversation I had with Adrian Gamble. I was chatting to Archie about it, and I basically gave the 40 foot container version of it. Now, I'm going to pare that way back and just stick to what I have. So I could theoretically bring this recording studio that I've built and just leave it in a car park in any town anywhere in Ireland. The idea being that it would be for public access, so people could come and, again, I'm thinking outside the box here, okay? I haven't done anything, I haven't made anything, I haven't researched anything, I haven't fully fleshed out the idea. But the idea is that you rent the room, basically, for an hour or 2 hours or the whole fucking day, whatever you're willing to fucking part with. But the idea is that you and your elderly granny, who haven't seen each other in a year, can sit down face to face and actually have a conversation and a cup of fucking tea or whatever it is. And you're not terrified of catching some sort of a fucking virus that'll kill you, or giving the person some sort of a virus that'll kill you. So I really like that idea, and I think that's worth fleshing out. And it's the type of idea that I'd actually like to see if I could go get funding for. Do you know, right lads, let's build a fucking prototype. Let's throw $5,000 in and we'll build a fucking prototype just to see if it works. If it works, we'll build 10 more and we'll stick them together, and we'll have a big fucking communal thing that will be a real asset to a town like Navan, because you could pop this in the fair green, people could come and go and use it as they please. What I'm thinking is, it's no good without power, so that's basically what you charge people for. And I don't know if you put in coins, like an electricity meter that you can get installed in your house, so the lights go off when you don't pay the bill, basically. And that's what would happen maybe with this kind of recording studio thing. But anyway, that's the other version of the mobile podcast studio that's been rattling around in my head. The next one is, and shout out to Keelan Ward. Again, I've mentioned this cunt 101 times. I've never met the man. What a fucking legend. He emailed me out of the blue there recently to say that he didn't realise that I was back doing them after the fucking year-odd break in between, and had started listening and heard that I was looking for help basically in finding clips from previous episodes. And he sent me on an email to imofthelead@gmail.com, and he basically said, well, Frano, was listening to the podcast, and I think this clip, which is in Season 3, episode 4 or whatever it was, and it's from minute 2 minutes and 25 seconds to minute 8 minutes and 2 seconds. That clip, I think that would be a good clip to share. Now, the clip that he was referencing was, what the fuck was it? It was in relation to you as a manufacturer. So if you're creating a product to sell, and I personally grow microgreens for a living, so I don't manufacture anything per se, but I still do create a product. I grow it, I don't, build it or make it. I grow it, but I'm a producer. I'm producing a product. And the point that I was getting across in that 5 or 6 minute segment was that as a producer, once your production capacity far exceeds your sales, you essentially become a marketing company. Okay, so that was the point that I was getting across, and that's a valid point that more people need to fucking hear. But the odds of them randomly summoning across my podcast, listening to countless fucking tens of hours of conversations and solos to find that's not going to happen. But if I cut out that little 5 minute segment and create a clickbaity video on it on YouTube, I had it up, and within fucking 24 hours it had 25 views. I think it has 40 or 50 views now. That's the other thing. I've already set up, again, shout out to Keelan Ward. It was entirely thanks to him that I bothered me whole to set up that page. I clipped that cutting that he mentioned and I uploaded it, and I made a clickbaity thing. So Off the Lead Clips, check it out and subscribe to it, please, because the more people that subscribe to it, the more people will fucking see it, the easier it is for people like you who are fans to maybe share it. Because I get that if you're an Off the Lead head, basically, if you're a fan and you fucking listen to everything that I put out, it can be hard to get your friend in, because like, what do? You're like, oh yeah, he had a really good 4.5 hour conversation with this fella, you should listen to it. Will I? Yeah, will I fuck listen to a 4.5 hour conversation? But if you give them a clip, if you can send them a link to a 3.5 minute clip that's down their street, let's say it's about fucking drugs, or it's about sex, or it's about whatever the fuck that person is interested in. If you can send them a clip of something that they're interested in and they listen to it and they enjoy it because it's only 2 or 3 or 5 minutes long, then they might go, fuck, I might actually listen to this full episode. And that's the whole point of having the Off the Lead clip channel, that you pump out clips. And that's another thing I have to really start doing, is mining the content that I already have, looking for those minute or 2 gems that either a guest say or I manage to blurt out somehow along the way. But anyway, that's Keelan Ward. Shout out to him for sending me on. That's the second first he's done, actually. The first he did was, he was my very first he was my very first patron on Patreon. That will never be forgotten. And secondly, he was the very first person who sent me a recommendation for something to be clipped out of one of my episodes. That too will never be forgotten. So double shout out to Keelan Ward. What else have I been thinking about? The book. Here's one for you. Have I already written a first draft of an audiobook? That's a thought that came to mind when I just started writing notes down before I started recording this episode. Like, I've got fucking 500,000 hours of content. Does that need to be whittled down to make an audiobook? It's funny, because if you were to ask me this morning, Frano, do you ever think you'll write a book? I'd probably give you some sort of an answer like, oh yeah, wouldn't rule it out. Like, yeah, I've plenty to say and plenty that I think should be, I've plenty to say, and I've plenty of things that I know that I wish other people knew. So yeah, a book might be, that could be an idea. That's the type of answer that I would have given. But if you had asked me this morning, Fran, do you ever think you'll release an audiobook? I would have went, fuck, I kind of already have I? Do you know that kind of way? Never mind, will I? I would have said, Jesus, I kind of have I? So you're going from kind of having done it already? So you're going from, kind of maybe, to I've kind of done it already. But I mean, they're the same fucking thing. Now, they shouldn't be, and maybe they're not. And I don't think an audiobook that I would write would read well. And I don't think the transcript of my podcasts would read particularly well. Because you need the delivery. That's what it's all about. Like, I mean, I could run on my episodes, and I've been offered this by companies. I've been offered the chance to give a company access to my podcast, which is basically just an email saying, yes, you can have access to my podcast. So what they do is they download it from whatever podcatcher they're they're listening to it from, whether it's Stitcher or Acast or iTunes or Spotify or YouTube. I mean, my fucking stuff is everywhere. They download it, they run it through their software, and it basically they could just print out a book on the back of it. They could literally just download the Off the Lead podcast, everything that I've uploaded, and hit print, and the whole thing will come out word for word, typed out. Now, given my accent and all the rest of it, it mightn't be perfect, but it's going to be as near as makes no fucking difference. You're going to be able to read it. But you could pick your favourite episode that I've ever done. Okay, let's say you've got a standout. Let's say Season 3, Episode 11 is just the best thing you've ever heard in your entire life. For whatever reason, you just think that. I don't know if reading it is going to have the same effect. Because you need here's one for you, and you never guess what fucking happened next. You need, there's something about that. There's something palpable about it. You can fucking feel it, like. That I don't think you get as much from reading the written word. But anyway, that's the book. Chapters is something I've started writing. I don't have them to hand here, but I must actually list them off to you, because, and even just know them better myself, because before you write a book, I think you should probably write the chapters, because you need to know what the fuck it is that you're going to write before you write it, because if you don't, it's just going to end up as waffle. But anyway, enough about the poxy book. Getting guests on is another thing that's been in my head. I've asked a couple of people. I haven't really pushed it. I haven't started emailing people asking them to come on, because I haven't sorted the mobile nature of the van yet. Like, don't get me wrong, I can drive it anywhere right now. I could literally just pull in the extension lead and drive it somewhere, plug it in, hey presto, we're mobile. But I don't have I need to plug it in somewhere. Okay, so that's just, it's a bit of an ask when you're ringing somebody. Like, put it this way, I contact some high profile person or someone I just want to talk to and offer them two scenarios. One is, listen, I'll meet up with you whenever. Is there a quiet car park beside you? Like, you know, a GA pitch or a church or something like that, or maybe a shopping centre that's quiet these days with COVID. I'll meet you there, we'll jump in the back of the van and we'll go about our business. Happy days. Okay, so that's option number one. Option number two is the only option that's available to me now. Look, I can meet you wherever you want, but I've no power, so could we meet you at your house and I might be able to put an extension lead in your window? Like, okay, maybe people are going to be okay with that, but I'm not going to be okay with asking people to do that. Okay, now maybe that's something that I just need to get over, but it's not. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait until I have power sorted and take it from there. So that's the fucking... What's that? That's getting guests on. Oh, and then of course, part and parcel of getting guests on, as I outlined there, is do I go for a generator, do I go for a battery and an inverter? So that's all bubbling around in my head as well. The other thing that's bubbling around in my head is what I mentioned there recently, this idea of hijacking the machinery. I really, really like that. There's something to that, I think. I mentioned how Jordan Peterson, Trump, and was it Joe Rogan, I think I mentioned, how they hijacked the machinery. The idea being that Jordan Peterson didn't build 200 stadiums all over the world and then invite people to join him. They were already fucking there, okay? He didn't come up with some sort of novel marketing ploy to get hundreds of thousands of people all over the world to buy tickets off him. He just used Ticketmaster or whatever he used. I don't know what he used, but he didn't fucking come up with it himself is the point. So he hijacked the machinery, basically. Now, to bring that back down into kind of reality, here's one for you. So every couple of years we have local elections. We elect people to represent us in our local government, in our county councils, okay? And every year across the country, or not every year, but every year it happens across the country, it's the exact same fucking thing. Nobody knows anything is happening, and then one day you wake up and every fucking telegraph pole and lamppost in the town is covered by a load of cunts that you don't know who they are and you've never seen them before, and they're all saying vote me number one for change or for to make a difference or some other fucking meaningless fucking epitaph. Epitaph, is that the right word? Who knows? But the idea being, if I was to either run myself or get somebody else to run, or even better again, if me and 2 or 3 other people were to run simultaneously, and the 3 or 4 of us were on the one billboard, and instead of me putting up 50 posters of me and someone else putting up 50 posters of them and someone else putting up 50 posters of them and someone else and so on and so forth, what about you put up 200 posters of the four of yous and saying, we're for independence, we're for like-minded independents who are going to work like you for you, and you can tell we're going to work for you because we're going about getting elected better than all those other useless cunts who you shouldn't fucking vote for. The idea being that you hijack the machinery. You get involved with what's already there, if that makes sense. But anyway, don't want to go too deep into that. I want to get back to my list. That was hijacking the machinery. Setting up my work week is the next thing. Because this is so fucking new, and because the kids aren't in school and all the rest of it, I don't have a 9 to 5. So I'm trying to do it 9 to 5 Monday to Friday as much as is feasible, but I'm not getting up as early as I should, and I'm not going to bed as early as I should in order to get up as early as I should. And I can't. It's not that I can't do that, but it's hard to do that when you don't have some sort of a structure in place. Okay, so I'm missing that big time. Now maybe that will come when the schools open up. Hopefully that'll come when the schools come up. But that's another thing, trying to organise my work week, when I'm going to meet guests, how many solos I'm going to do, if I'm going to do them, all that jazz. That's rattling around in my head. The fucking pig is still rattling around in my head. Here's one for you. My little brother, shout out to future guest of the show, Adon. He's out in Qatar, in Doha. Adon listens to the podcast and heard about me having an interest in shooting a pig and all that jazz. And I think he heard me mention the idea of me possibly getting a piglet, which I believe now will be the time to do as well, because it's a spring pig. I think you get a piglet in spring, you fatten them up for the summer, and then you kill it and gut it and skin it and all the rest of it and butcher it in the autumn time. So that's what I'm toying with. Now, as it happens, his missus is from a farming background and her brother is in the market for piglets right now. So I could be getting a piglet sooner than I think. So that's in me fucking head. Now, I've been harping on about getting chickens for years, and it's probably no harm to get a few chickens before I go and get a pig. Which brings me on to another thought process, this idea of how to ask for something. So I rent a business premises. I've already got the go-ahead to get chickens. Now I can ask, can I get a pig? But I can't ask for chickens and then ask for a pig without first getting the chickens, because I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So that's another thing that's rattling around in my head. Scripted episodes is another thing that's rattling around in my head. I'd love to sit down and spend a day or a week or however long it takes on a particular topic and do 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is, but have it fucking perform it, like, you know, rehearse it and perform it. That's in my head. I'm on 70.5 minutes and I'll chat you in the next one.